Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on Chelsea 3, Aston Villa nil. A very good win, not the best performance, but as I'll get into, I think that last night sort of summarised why there's so much belief we can actually compete for a Premier League title. Chelsea not being at their best. Chelsea being very ruthless thanks to Lukaku, and it feels like even his ruthlessness in front of goal is sort of helping the whole team, especially Mateo Kovacic with his finish in the game. Yeah, I was a little bit stunned by the amount of changes Thomas Tuchel made. I understand it's been a very hectic international break where some players have been playing up to 3 games. The likes of Mason Mount has played a lot of minutes, not only for Chelsea but also internationally. And there's been a lot of travel and chaos as we get after every international break. So sometimes these games can be difficult, and especially players still gaining their fitness early on in the season. It's about managing those minutes. I'm not obviously a fitness expert. I'm not seeing if any players are in the red zone and need a rest. But I was just a little bit surprised that Tuchel made as many changes as he did. In particular, not having at least one of Jorginho, Cesar Azpilicueta or Mason Mount in the first team. He usually has at least one. I believe this is the first time as Chelsea head coach he's not had any in a Premier League starting 11. I think he didn't have any in the Barnsley FA Cup game, but I think in terms of a Premier League context, he always has at least one of his trusted regulars. And I think it said a lot at half time that Jorginho came on for Saul Niguez, who we'll get to later in the review, and also Cesar Azpilicueta came on later as well, two of his most trusted lieutenants basically on the pitch, players who he goes to, I think, keeps that continuity within the squad level of performance. But in the end, Chelsea and Tuchel kind of got away with it, the mistakes in terms of throwing Saul Niguez into the deep end. Obviously that changed within 45 minutes. But Lukaku, absolutely ridiculous. Just to throw up this stat instantly from Squawka, no Chelsea player has scored more Premier League goals at Stamford Bridge since Thomas Tuchel took over than Romelu Lukaku. He's only played 1 game at Stamford Bridge since returning to the club. Sam Inksole here, my colleague at Football London, 22 clean sheets in 35 games in all competitions under Thomas Tuchel is just absurd. So despite the concern in the first half, Chelsea once again resolute, yet to concede a goal from open play in the Premier League this season. And of course that ties in with Mohamed Salah's penalty. Chelsea once again looking so good defensively. In particular, Trevor Chalobah winning 77.8% of his duels via Nazar Cancelo here, made 4 tackles and 6 clearances, the most in each category for a Chelsea player. Great to see Trevor play, and part of a defence that kept another clean sheet for Chelsea. So a really good start to the season for him. But as I said, 6 changes. So no Dave, Georgie or Mount. You had Trevor Chalobah coming in, Thiago Silva. All the nonsense with the Brazilian ban was put to one side, and he was able to play. Hudson-Odoi playing at right wing back. Saul Niguez getting his full debut. Mateo Kovacic in that midfield with Saul Niguez, and Hakim Ziyech coming into the side with Lukaku and Havertz in that front two, and of course Marcos Alonso as well keeping his place, which was quite interesting. Let's talk about Lukaku. 3-3 first goals at Stamford Bridge. This is from Matt Law's report. Lukaku only touched the ball 25 times in the game, less than any other outfield player, but 2 of those were goals. He only had 2 shots on the day. I looked at his the XG sort of value. If you care a lot about XG, I was writing quite a big piece for Football London last night that's going out today about this. Of course, comparisons to Cristiano Ronaldo on the day, both scoring 2 goals, but Lukaku, his value from his 2 shots was lower overall than Ronaldo's was for his. Ronaldo took more shots on the day. Yes, Chelsea were playing a higher level of opposition, and there's a lot of variables that go into what creates an XG, but I think that Lukaku having that ruthlessness for Chelsea, it just completely changes the game for the club, because I think that for Tuchel last season, this was the type of game we absolutely stumbled in. We lost to Aston Villa on the final day of last season, had a very high XG value that day and somehow didn't come away with a win, but it was a very disappointing performance. We drew to them at home, so we've already gained 2 points on the identical fixture last season. And, it just changes the complexion, because it was a first half that wasn't that great for Chelsea. Aston Villa pressed us very hard. I thought they were brilliant on the night, really, and I think they should have come away with more. They should have at least scored. I mean, Ollie Watkins' chance, a brilliant block by Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva made some brilliant blocks overall. He made more blocks than anyone else when he came on at Anfield for Chelsea. Pretty international break, and he made some key ones here, and just interceptions, very much getting back to the quality levels we saw from Thiago Silva. And the fact that Christensen didn't play at all is just showing you the strength and depth of Chelsea. But I think with that 3-5-2 formation that Dean Smith used to try and match up Chelsea in a lot of ways, Chelsea really struggled. Our press was really disorganised in that first half. It felt like it was the worst thing. It sort of felt like three sections. And as I say, I think in the remainder of this review, I'll get to Saul Niguez and sort of talking about his debut. But Chelsea really struggled. But if you've got someone like Lukaku up there, who with one chance can change the game, can score a goal, be so ruthless, it's going to completely alter the way I think a lot of these games will go. Chelsea, we can't play 10 out of 10 every game, and it's unrealistic to expect that, especially when Tuchel is making as many changes as he did. But to have that ruthlessness up there, to have someone who is going to take half chances as well and create goals for himself. It was a wonderful ball from Mateo Kovacic, who had a sublime game last night. But especially for Lukaku, his first and second goal, there were things he needed to do to create, the goal himself. And it just shows you the level of performer we're getting. And it was just so emotional seeing him back at Stamford Bridge, celebrating in front of the shed in the first half, and of course to Matthew Harding in the second. You can see how much it means to him, and it's just a perfect blend of a player who is elite, who is in the form of his career, who is the complete forward that Chelsea needed, who is going to add so much, but also sentimental reasons, him returning to Stamford Bridge, scoring his first 2 goals. Of course, his last game for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge was against Aston Villa in 2013. Mateo Kovacic, just to pick out, I think, had a brilliant game. He had the most touches, most accurate passes, and most ball recoveries on the night. Scored a goal. That finish, of course, it came from a Tyrone Mings mistake. But the elegance in that finish, the confidence in that chip, you wouldn't think that Mateo Kovacic not only is not a regular scorer for Chelsea, but his last goal for the club came in December 2019, over 20 months. So as I said at the start of this review, maybe Rom's sort of clinical edge is radiating across the team, because it was a brilliant finish, and it really once again set the tone for a second half that was much different to the first. And going 2-0 up, it gave Chelsea that confidence, that security, and that 2-goal lead, and very much set the tone for a second half that was much more comfortable. But I thought overall Cover had a really good game. He sets up the first goal. Chelsea were lacking a bit of rhythm in that opening 20 minutes or opening 15 minutes, and he just has a bit of acceleration, sees the pass, makes the pass. That's what Lukaku's going to give you. He's going to make those forward direct runs, and I think it's going to give the confidence of a lot of Chelsea players to play the ball into Lukaku very quickly, because they know the quality of forward he is. But it was still a brilliantly orchestrated pass. The way he curves it round, it's just elegant. And Kovacic, I don't think the doubts and my frustrations with him have ever been about his technical ability. It's always in his impact and influence in both boxes. But so far this season, since taking that number 8 shirt, he has offered that. He's got 2 assists so far this season, of course, assisting Trevor Chalobah on the opening day. But I think more importantly, the way he set up the first goal against Arsenal, playing the ball into Reece James. That was a brilliant performance, I think, and especially from an attacking perspective. And, Kovacic again here, now he's got Saul Niguez arriving. There's going to be competition, and it's great to see him influencing, feeling confident. It just strengthens the squad. So I think Kovacic deserves a lot of praise. I think another player who deserves a lot of praise is Edouard Mendy. Made 6 saves on the night, as I said, earlier in the review, yet to concede from open play. Made some key saves in that first half. Ollie Watkins, a real low shot. You expect him to save, but it's just the confidence and the assured nature of Mendy, how he's transformed the areas. Maybe those intangible things that you're not just looking at what he does in saving shots, but I think the confidence he gives to the rest of Chelsea's defence on such a consistent basis. And yeah, I think that it's fair to maybe give him man of the match, because if any of those go in the first half, it's a completely different game. Villa would have been very confident going into half time at 1-1, and as much as we need a clinical striker, a top class striker, you also need a top class goalkeeper to win a Premier League title, and I think that's what we've got in Edouard Mendy. Let's round off the review by speaking about Saul Niguez. Nazar Kinsella here talking about his stats weren't that impressive. Yes, it was kind of a nightmarish first 45 minutes for Saul Niguez. It couldn't have gone much worse. Chelsea come away from it unscathed. I was just a little bit surprised that, number one, he started. I know he's been at Cobham, but especially to start not alongside Jorginho. And that's not sort of rubbishing Cover, who I just praised, but it's just that continuity within the side, having a more experienced player next to him, someone who is a little bit more of a leader in this current first team. Of course, knowing N'Golo Kante, it just surprised me, and I think it was a mistake by Tuchel. Tuchel admitted, throwing him in at the deep end, and it just didn't work out. I want to give context, and I did tweet this last night, that for context for Sal, Thiago Silva's first 45 minutes for Chelsea last year was that absolutely horrific 45 minutes, the Hawthorns against West Brom, where we were 3-0 down. Thiago Silva slipped, which led to a Callum Robinson goal. And, Thiago Silva obviously has been brilliant since then. He's recovered. So, Saul Niguez, it's a wake-up call. It's probably the best definition or best example I could give to you of the intensity of the Premier League, why it's different than other leagues. There are many times where it's quite clear that maybe in La Liga, Saul Niguez could have had a little bit more time to play the pass, but he was so off it. Villa were carving through there in the first half. They had midfield runners. There was a time when I think Ramsey made a run, and Saul Niguez were kind of just jogging next to him, and I want that midfielder closing him down there, and it's just a bit of a shame that he couldn't get off to the best start. But Chelsea win the game in 45 minutes. Jorginho comes on, sets the tempo, sets the quality in midfield, and Chelsea get away with it in the end. I just think maybe it was a bit of a mistake from Tuchel to throw in Saul Niguez. I would have been maybe looking to bring him off the bench in this game, 60 minutes. You maybe start Jorginho, add that continuity there. And then, of course, we've got the Zenit game on Tuesday. There are games in the coming weeks where Saul Niguez will be able to get his minutes up. But, for him, it can only go up from here. And I think it will, this is also a player that we're bringing in from Atletico, who wasn't really wanted by Atletico and is wanting to rebuild his career at Stamford Bridge. And, that's going to be the challenge for Chelsea. That's going to be the challenge for Saul Niguez over the coming weeks. And, that midfield is looking strong. Kovacic playing well, Jorginho in the form of his career. We're hopefully going to have Kante back very soon. So there's options there. It's just for Saul Niguez. Hopefully he can, as the weeks go on, as he gets more experience in the English game, his sort of the rhythm and the tempo and what's required of him in that area, he'll know a lot more and he'll get better. So, I wouldn't go overboard. It was a bad 45 minutes, but, it can only go up from here. And as I said, with Thiago Silva, he very quickly adapted and was one of Chelsea's best players last season. So, all round, you've got to be happy about, Chelsea ruthlessly doing the job in a game. They struggled last season and dropped points. And it's just, looking around the league, looking at Man United being so devastating in attack now with Ronaldo, Man City winning at Leicester very impressively, Liverpool playing at Leeds today. I do think that top four is going to be... I feel that it's going to be quite separated from the rest of the league, which I think is going to make for a more exciting and close title race. I know we're very, very early days, but games like that last night where Lukaku scoring goals from the off and Chelsea just all round are not amazing, but just get the job done. It's very stereotypical, but it's the sort of result that Chelsea need to churn out on a regular basis that they just haven't been in recent years. I think those type of performances last night where, it's 6, 7 out of 10, but, in front of goal were absolutely brilliant with few touches, especially with Rom up top. That's going to make the difference for us if we want to seriously compete for the Premier League title. Of course, we've got the Champions League starting on Tuesday against Zenit St. Petersburg. Interesting to see what Tuchel does in terms of rotation, bringing players back that didn't start the game yesterday. And of course, Spurs next weekend, the League Cup against Villa in next midweek. And then, of course, Man City, which is going to be a massive clash so early in the season. Let me know your opinions on the game in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.